All right, welcome back, everyone. It's the grand finale. A long time coming. I know it's been it's taking way too long, obviously, on these 2025 reflection videos, and I still haven't really done all the ones I wanted to do. I don't know if I'll do them or not, but at least for this, ranking every movie I watched for the first time in 2025, this will be the end. The last 50 of the 200 movies. You can go back and watch the first three parts, very comprehensive. Also, all year long, I've been ranking movies each month, so things have been changing. But yeah, here's just a quick look at what we have so far. We got S tier, A tier, a little bit chunkier B tier, and then C tier, D tier, F tier. All right. And if you aren't aware, from the start of this, we've been doing it alphabetically just because that's how Tier Maker organizes all the movies. So this is the end of the alphabet, going from the perfect neighbor, through to the end. So if you're looking for anything before that in the alphabet, that's in a previous part. Go check it out. All right. Obviously, these are long form videos, so hard to really get around that. I'll try not to dwell too much on each one, but this is the end of my 2025 movie ranking, but we'll see how it goes. For consistency's sake, I'm going to keep to the same format, where essentially I'll go back and see my initial Letterboxd review and see if my opinion has changed or not, and go from there. This isn't based on my pre-existing ratings entirely. I've moved stuff around that doesn't quite fit that. So it's more based on vibes and how I'm feeling looking back on it now. But important to note, everything will be spoiler free. So because there's such a random collection of movies here, I want you to be able to watch without fear of spoilers for random movies at any moment. First up is The Perfect Neighbor, which was, it was pretty much poised to. It was the most poised to be nominated for an Oscar for a documentary. And for a lot of people, it's the likely winner. Though, of course, there's like a little wrench in it because Mr. Nobody Against Putin just won the BAFTA. So who knows? But it's a brilliant documentary. Like brutal, absolutely brutal to watch. Um, I can't stress that enough. Like it's a really horrible watch. If you have any sort of empathy for humans at all, it's gonna be tough to watch. And it's so raw in how it's presented. Essentially, it's the large majority of it is body cam footage, just edited together to tell the story along this timeline of events. And so it's nothing crazy in that regard, but it's very effective. It's very, very effective. So can't deny that. Here's what I said. Unbelievably difficult watch. Had to pause to get myself together halfway through because it was so emotional. Such a tragic story that I was incredibly moved by. I was completely enraptured by this, engaged in a way that seldom happens with any documentary film. In a filmmaking sense, it's not the most groundbreaking thing ever because it is almost entirely put together from body cam footage, but at the same time, it is more impactful at telling its story as a result. The rawness of it really highlights the severity and realness of the situation. You really feel the frustration and the heartbreak along with the victim's family slash neighbors as everything unfolds. Absolutely brutal and devastating, but an important film to watch for humanity's sake. It's one of those movies like I get saying like with regular movies, like maybe this um I don't know if I can recommend it because it's a tough watch in like a scripted sense. But documentaries more so have gotten to the point where it's like, well, if it's a difficult watch, I think it's still worth watching. It's not something I'm going to be like, well, if you're not into this, I would say maybe be in the right headspace. If you want a nice and easy movie to watch without like too much weighing on you. Obviously, this isn't a movie for, but like with a movie like this and a recent movie documentary I watched, Alabama Solution, it's like, who am I to say it's like hard on me watching when like what they actually went through is way harder. So it's like important to put that in perspective too. But The Perfect Neighbor, brutal watch, simple in a documentary sense, and in that way, just like I've said this whole time with documentaries, it's so hard to place on a tier list. In fact, like when I first watched it, I gave it 4.5 stars, and I since came down to 4 stars. Just trying to be objective, but this is one of the very few films ever to have me literally, like I said, halfway through I had to pause the movie because it was just that emotional. I mean, I was just like bawling my eyes out. It's unbelievable. Unfortunately, not happy tears, but like that's what you want a documentary to do. You want to feel, you want it to have an impact on you in that way. So, Perfect Neighbor, no doubt, it's an A tier at least. So let's bring it up here. Where exactly? I don't know. I'm tempted to put it right around here above Blackfish, another documentary. It's so hard to compare these kinds of documentaries. Because Blackfish is tragic in a different way, but it's not nearly the same context. It's not meant to evoke the same reaction at all. So it's completely different with its intentions and the scale of it all. But, it's just the impact of that one is definitely stronger. Could definitely be higher. I don't know. I'm never confident with these, of course, but that's where I'm at. Next up is The Perks of Being a Wallflower. This is one, if you'd like, you can go over to my channel Tarkaron, and we did a review on this together. Thanks to my friend Rusty, who had sent this to us for a gift exchange once upon a time. That got us to watch it. I totally get it, but you can watch our detailed review on that channel. So I had a short Letterboxd review as a result. The only thing that takes away from this movie a little bit is the YA cheesiness that's sprinkled on a bit. Other than that, I really enjoyed the friendship dynamic, some key awkward scenes, and really effective, more powerful moments. Definitely had me emotional at times. So yeah, it's definitely powerful. I mean, like it does such a good job. Like I said, it's got this young adult style to it, like that coat of paint on it, and there's some cheesiness with that, but it really just lends itself to the vibe of the movie. It's just more the demographic, and it's like the age group we're following, so it makes sense. But it still is a supremely effective story being told here. It's tough because I did rate it very high, but right now I'm kind of thinking B tier. Probably quite towards the top of B tier. Like I'll probably actually put it, for some reason I'm eyeing up the spot between The Menu and Midsommar, which I'm definitely not confident on, by the way. I think Midsommar is probably better. Yeah, let me switch that actually. I think it's hard to really say The Menu is better than Midsommar. But yeah, The Perks of Being a Wallflower just in the middle for some reason now. Next up is The Phoenician Scheme. This is one I'm a little torn on. I liked some aspects of it. It's my first Wes Anderson film, period. And I totally get that style's here. But some of it's doesn't fully work. And I think I basically get into this in the review here. Love the distinct directing style at play. From what I've heard, this very much tracks for Wes Anderson. The film lacks any depth that might propel it to be an excellent film, but I do appreciate the intentional stupidity and deadpan deliveries here. It's not laugh out loud funny, but it is humor that I enjoy. A wild and random cast of stars has been put together here, and our leading performances are quite fun. The unconventional directing style combined with the most random happenings made for some fun visuals. The fact that nothing really matters both defines the charm of the film while also keeping me from rating this any higher. Love the energy that Michael Cera and Mia Threepleton brought to the film in particular. Yeah, that's the thing for me. There are some movies like this where it's like fun and it's like stylized, but ultimately lacks depth in how it goes about things. And for me, those movies, while I might enjoy them, they're never going to really soar to any high heights here. So, like, based on rating, I would probably end up in B tier, but I think more so makes sense in C tier. Probably towards the top of C tier, just thinking about it now, because I'm not super passionate thinking back on it. And so while I gave it 3.5 stars, which is good to me, I'm going to put it more in the okay tier here, which will be in C tier. And like I said, probably towards the top. Maybe like right around there, third in C tier. That's how I'm feeling. Next up is Poor Things. All right, this is interesting because in the same year I watched Poor Things and then also Begonia now for the first time. So I got a little bit of that Yorgos Lanthimos, Emma Stone experience here. This is a strong film. I don't quite feel like I feel as passionately about this one in particular as a lot of people do, but I definitely enjoy it. I think it's really a strong concept. It's super weird. I mean, just like Begonia, I fuck with weird, definitely. No, I'm not shy about that at all. I like some unconventional weird stuff. And I think, yeah, so the first thing in this review, some weird shit. I've been watching a lot of that recently, but I kind of fuck with it. It plays with some really interesting concepts that have actual merit to them despite the weird Frankenstein adjacent aesthetic. Not that the aesthetic's a bad thing, it's actually rather certainly one of the appeals of the film in totality, especially on the production side of things. It's just that on the surface you might not think there's more to it than the weird sex dynamics you are first presented with. That being said, I'm not quite as high on it as people seem to be, especially around the time of last year's awards buzz, but Emma Stone's performance is quite effective and I admire the bold decisions and direction which make this film so unique. I mean, Emma Stone is still, like, she's so good in this, and I've come to really enjoy Emma Stone as an actress, with these last, like, recent movies from her. So for me, it's pretty convincingly in B tier. It's one that I could definitely see moving up to A tier, certainly is a possibility, but for now I feel B tier. Where exactly? Probably towards the top half somewhere. Like, yeah, like, I think right around Friendship. Let's put it right below Friendship. It's around there, I think. It's just so tough. Like I said, even looking at this now, I'm not confident in, like, are these really below this? And it's just like, if I start moving stuff around, it'll probably take forever. So it's tough ranking 200 movies, to be fair. Punch Drunk Love. So this was my first Paul Thomas Anderson film. Scratch that, I lied. It's my second Paul Thomas Anderson film after One Battle After Another. Of course, that was my introduction to Paul Thomas Anderson, and then I've just heard his name so often, so obviously I need to start going back. Punch Drunk Love I've always heard talked about and intrigued me because it was like a more serious Adam Sandler role. And I really, really enjoyed this film. I think it's really charming and fun, is what I said on the Letterboxd review. Love the style of directing from Paul Thomas Anderson. So many great, funny scenes with the right amount of chaos sprinkled in and a wild score. The score and certain elements to it, and that kind of like chaotic propulsion of the story, that really felt like, a similarity between Paul Thomas Anderson's couple films I've seen now, One Battle and this, even decades apart. I like, there's that little through line. It's obviously a very different film, much more small scale, more intimate story. But I really enjoyed Adam Sandler's character in here. Like, while he's not a comedic role, there's some funny moments you get out of it, but there's some heart to it too. Pretty wholesome at times. Just random. Now that I think of it, there's more similarities than I'm even giving it credit for. Like, there's some iconic phone calls in that movie that I really enjoyed. Just like in One Battle After Another, there's the often referenced phone call for Leonardo DiCaprio. That's like super iconic. So maybe Paul Thomas Anderson is just really good with some compelling / funny phone calls. I don't know, but this is a tough one to place. I don't know. Oh my god, I'm so torn. Like, as I'm looking at it, I'm like, does it go in B tier? I think it's in A tier, but then I would think I should bring up some of these in B tier. Maybe I might just end up doing that. Who knows? But let's put it in A tier. Let's put it at the bottom of A tier, but I quite enjoyed it. Next up is a film named Queer, starring Daniel Craig. This is directed by Luca Guadagnino, who is known for now Challengers, among others. Been putting out a lot of films recently, and these are often noted as some people's favorites of the year. But for me, they just haven't been working for me fully. Like, same with Challengers, same with this one. It's just not really my jam too much. Really hard for me to land on a score here, while the film definitely did surprise me in some ways, and I appreciated the symbology that is weaved into the technical side of the film. I mostly was not engaged with it as a whole. The way I feel about this film is similar to how I felt about Maria. On the production side, I can point to things that I appreciate, but the movie itself was fairly boring to me. In fairness to Queer, there are definitely some more interesting elements to sink your teeth into, but even when it got into the trippy side of things that I did not see this film doing, I still wasn't too into it. I really appreciate how everything thematically tied back into the struggles of Daniel Craig's character, and in general being queer in the 50s, but I just wish there was more to the story itself. So yeah, it's one of those films where like I could see why people might enjoy it, but style just didn't really work for me, and it wasn't super entertaining. I found it to drag on a bit at times. So, to similar to Maria, I was thinking of D tier, but I'll probably put it in a similar spot. Maybe put a little jingle all the way in between the two. But there you go. A Real Pain. This is a film that was directed by Jesse Eisenberg, starring Jesse Eisenberg and Kieran Culkin, who went on to win the Best Supporting Actor last year. I really enjoyed this film. This is one of the earliest films of the year that I watched back in January. Oddly enough, this movie was starting to give me a slightly more twisted planes, trains, and automobiles vibe for a bit there. This was a nice, quaint story where the dialogue and the little subtleties of the performances really elevate the film. Kieran Culkin is an obvious standout for how natural and raw his performance feels, but Jesse Eisenberg also does a really good job as the yin to his yang, particularly with the mannerisms and quirks that add a lot of personality to the character. Overall, it's the dialogue and the way that these characters interact that makes the film for me, though I can't help but wish we got just a little bit more out of it. Not lengthwise. Thank you for a palatable 90-minute movie. Yeah, for sure. I always gotta make that clear. I don't need longer movies. I love the length of this film, and like I said, it's much more palatable. But yeah, I love the performances here. I love it's a more simple story, but it's like super effective with how it's conveyed, and it's easy to connect with and like understand the perspective, and like that's why I really felt after watching it that it was very much reminiscent of a Planes, Trains, Automobiles, but just like less leaning into the comedy side of things. At times, it's still very funny, but just not as over the top as Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. There's some real weight behind it. Yeah, so I really enjoyed this film. This is gonna be an A tier film for me too. I think it's gonna make its way up here. Not S tier, but A tier. Right around here, maybe? I don't know, it's so tough. Next up is a film called The Remarkable Life of Evelyn. This is one of those films where easily, first of all, the title is not going to probably be that interesting. There's nothing going to stand out about it. And also, it's one of those films where there's probably a chance a good amount of you haven't seen it. And I think it's remarkable. It's a documentary, first of all. Like I mentioned in previous parts, I watched a lot of brilliant documentaries this year, and this might be my favorite of them all. I think it's truly special for me, and it really resonated with me, like even more on it deeply than some of these other ones. Essentially, to try to paraphrase the story, it's about a kid who has this this disability which prevents him from living like a quote unquote normal life as easy as other kids do. And so to the parents, it just feels like he's inside playing video games all the time and not really getting, they're like saddened by the fact that he's not getting to go out and explore the world and like make friends out there. And essentially one thing leads to another, and the parents uncover that he's lived a whole like second life on the internet, essentially, and he's had a real impact on so many people, and made a lot of real friendships through the internet, and that was so fascinating. And not only that, I just think it's told beautifully. Like, first of all, the main game in question is World of Warcraft, where he spent a lot of his time. And, like, a lot of the story is told through World of Warcraft. Like, things that are apparently, like, how events unfolded in the game. He is shown like through the World of Warcraft animation style and everything. It's like really feels like a lot of care was put into this. And I thought that was a really extra special touch that was really nice. And this was just so special to me. And I think it will resonate with anyone who's made online connections and understands that the importance that can have on someone who's young like that. My review is wow, I'm blown away. This absolutely crushed me. A really beautiful documentary. I've never seen anything like it. Benjamin really seemed to handle this story with such care, and I love how everything was portrayed and translated onto film. This hit for me on so many levels. I can't recommend this enough. Amazing. It's just really special. Like, I think if I'm being honest, there are parts where it can drag a little bit. Maybe the pacing's not perfect, but when it comes to a documentary, I'm not as critical when it comes to that. Like, I'm not really gonna nitpick that much. If it's like not as exciting as certain parts, because a lot of it is just like true to life. And yeah, there's certain choices in editing or pacing of the narrative that you're telling, but at the end of the day, if the story is impactful, if it resonates with you, like that's the important part. And for the most part, I think it's really cool and creative how they do it too. So I think it's a special one. So I really would recommend you watch it. I'd be curious, like people who aren't in the gaming world or like very online, like how they would respond to something like this, because it might be enlightening for some people. And then also those who are in the gaming world and online a lot will probably resonate with it a lot. So yeah. So that being said, like as I've said, it might be my favorite documentary that I've watched this year. So as a result, it's gonna go all the way up to S tier. Come See the Good Light is up here, so it's gonna at least be above that. Let's put it up there. Beautiful, beautiful film. I love it. It's so nice, so special. Robin's Wish is another documentary. This one is one that's just on. You can find it on YouTube if you want to watch it. It's about Robin Williams. Robin Williams is someone like one of the few, if not the only celebrity death that really had an impact on me. Like actually made me like. But obviously, I'm sad when I hear that certain celebrities have passed away. But there's a distance to it. I'm not like super, like connected on the day to day of all these celebrities. And Robin Williams is just one I've always connected with, and so that death will always stand out to me and be memorable to me. And so I've always been fascinated with the circumstances of his death, and this one is shed some light on it. If you aren't aware of the circumstances, it would be good to watch, because it kind of, I think there's some misconceptions of his death that maybe are like swept up in like broad strokes when talking about it, and there's a little more nuance to it than just how it might be stated on like a Wikipedia page. And so I think it's a nice documentary. This is one where another one that really did impact me and it was emotional. But I will probably acknowledge that the documentary itself isn't outstanding. It's a decent documentary, but just like I think the material itself really spoke to me. So it's another one early on in the year. I said, damn, this one really hit me. It's maybe not so much a credit to the documentary, but to Robin Williams himself. He was so impactful to me and so many other people. This film was important in the sense that it clears up some misconceptions surrounding his death, sheds meaningful light on Lewy body disease, and gives you even more of a sense of just how great Robin was as a person. The added context from friends and loved ones was really nice, but it was all of the moments and days leading up to his death that really struck a chord with me and had me emotional. While it's not necessarily the most transformative documentary in the world, I think it is important. I also have to give it kudos for soliciting such a response from me, even if that is largely because of Robin Williams' character and imagining the pain he went through. Yeah, because I remember that really was what got me. And so it's like, that's one I can really more so separate from the documentary itself. But yeah, it's still obviously a good, solid documentary and worth watching for sure. Where B tier would I put it? I don't know, maybe rated above The Greatest Night in Pop. It's a little lower than I actually rated it, but feeling it out. Next up is a film from 2025 called The Roses, starring Olivia Colman and Benedict Cumberbatch. Let's go right to my review on this one. Some of the supporting characters were insufferable at times. Broadly speaking, there were still moments to appreciate for most of them. But the dynamic between Olivia Colman and Benedict Cumberbatch is just so golden that it's hard not to walk away enjoying this film. The ever-escalating, over-the-top nature of the relationship is just so effectively done, and they both play off of each other so well. Fun and chaotic. See, this is one where ultimately it's not when I walk away like with a deeper understanding of the world or like some profound feelings about things, but it's just a fun ride. And if you like want to buckle in and just enjoy the ride, have at it. It's a fun, chaotic relationship. Is essentially where we're at, and it gets over the top. It gets kind of crazy. It gets toxic, and it's like the performances are great. So it's gonna be B tier for me. I don't know, maybe Frankenstein: The Anatomy Lesson, below Paprika, somewhere around there. By the way, I don't want to change too much, but I do think these Final Destinations don't really make sense there. I think they should be generously at the bottom of B tier. Because they're fairly C tier movies. Rustin. This is a movie starring Colman Domingo, where he got an Oscar nomination. And that's primarily why I watched it, because I'm trying to watch more Colman Domingo films. Ever since I watched Sing Sing, I just have loved him as an actor in particular as well. I love Colman Domingo, so this is one I've been wanting to watch to see just for his performance alone. I've been wanting to see just for his performance alone. I'm glad I did, because he brings a fun energy to the role and definitely shines in every scene he's in. And I love his dialogue. It really adds a lot to the film. That being said, the film is a little surface level at times, and will sometimes forgo the finer details in favor of a snappier edit. And while there are some heartwarming and moving moments, I feel like there were a little more few and far between than I would have liked. I wish we would have stayed with moments like those longer. All in all, I definitely enjoyed the film more than I didn't, and I am particularly grateful that it put a spotlight on a man who I previously didn't know existed, a truly inspirational individual. That's the biggest thing I loved about it. I thought he was like a really amazing story, and loved that it shed light on that, and it was fun to watch Colman Domingo. Ultimately, it's probably going to be a pretty average C tier movie. Where exactly? I'd probably put right here, below Christmas Story. Next up is Saludos Amigos, with this great poster I have going on here. 1942 Disney film. I just have a list of all the Disney films. A lot of the older ones that I haven't watched, as well as some I'm just due for a rewatch, and then I'll just shuffle and watch a random one every now and then. This was one of them. This was also a really short one. I remember I was trying to get to that 200 number towards the last couple months of the year, so this one helped to get there too. Really quite a snooze fest, and hasn't exactly aged the best either. This somehow felt infinitely longer than its very brief runtime. Some of the animation is fun, particularly when the musicality comes into play, but overall there's really not much here to enjoy. Yeah, not much good at all to say about it. Let's be real. Let's say put it in F tier. Probably below most of these in F tier. Maybe it's better than Honey Don't, but for Margaret Qualley and Aubrey Plaza, I'll put it below that. And Madam Web's more fun, so let's do that, okay? Next up is Selena y los Dinos. So this is about Selena Quintanilla, who I remember I had read the story before, but I really didn't have as much of an appreciation for her as I did now. I didn't really know her music until watching this, and then I was very impacted by this. This is a documentary again, but I think it's quite effective and beautiful one. A beautiful celebration of someone whose life was cut tragically short and the tremendous legacy she left behind. I never knew much of Selena's music or much about her in general. I had read about the circumstances of her untimely death not too long ago, and even so I was shocked by how emotional this documentary had me by the end. Knowing that someone who seemed to be such a beautiful soul had her life ended so early and in the way that it was really gets to me. That being said, as much as my immediate reaction is one of deep sadness for her, this film devotes most of its time to celebrating her life and achievements through the words of her loved ones, as well as through plenty of archival footage of her, which was much appreciated. It does a good job at highlighting what made her special, even for me as someone who wasn't very familiar with her before, and that's exactly what a documentary like this should do. Really glad that I watched this because you can confidently count me amongst those newer Selena fans now. It's so sad to think about what could have been if she had a full life, and all that was taken from her. What she accomplished in only 23 years is incredibly inspiring. What an inspiring story. And the saddest thing is just like thinking about the impact she could have on the world, and especially being alive today, like what she would represent would be much needed now, I think. And I think just her spirit really shines through. Obviously, didn't know her on a personal level, so there's no way to know for sure, but as sure as you can be about someone on that level, for a celebrity, it really felt like a beautiful soul. And she had some great music, like some great hits in such a short time, and it's simultaneously tragic and inspiring. So it's another great documentary. Let's throw the bottom 8 of 8 here. Next up is The Shop Around the Corner, starring Jimmy Stewart and Margaret Sullivan from the 1940 film. This is a fascination that's kind of peaked because It's a Wonderful Life I watched for the first time, obviously very high in this ranking this year. But The Shop Around the Corner is one I had also kind of seen listed. I had seen listed under Christmas films, just obviously not nearly as highly as It's a Wonderful Life. And it's one of those ones where it's not super Christmassy. There's like Christmas takes place in it, that kind of thing. So it's not really a Christmas movie through and through, but has that vibe in there. And it was a really nice little love story. I actually really enjoyed this film. What a charming classic, dare I say underappreciated film. Pretty good vibes throughout, some really clever writing, and genuinely funny dialogue. Really enjoy how this cute little romance plot unravels, and I quite enjoyed a lot of the performances here, which were a lot of fun to watch. Classic case of how good writing and good on-screen presences can take a film a long way. The film takes place almost entirely on one set, and that limited scale just elevates the material here. Yeah, that's really cool. It feels a lot more intimate. It's like I said, it's small in scale, but the performances are so charming. The writing is so good. Like it was very impressed by like movies like this one in particular that decades and decades later, actually like decades doesn't even do it justice. It's 86 years later, the writing is still hitting. Like it's still funny, it's still snappy, and I still find it clever all these years later. Like you would think just on paper you'd be like, oh, 1940 film, like the comedy in that is just not gonna work at all today. Like it won't hit, but it totally did for me, and I quite enjoyed it. So that's another A tier for me. Probably, I don't know, I'm being boring, but probably right at the bottom, but still loved it. Shutter Island, Martin Scorsese film starring Leonardo DiCaprio. I still have a bunch of Leo movies to get to, but I'm so glad I watched this. This is one I happened upon from my random Letterboxd user picks series, where I just went on a random person's profile and this came up, and I hadn't seen it, so that was the one I watched. I'm glad I never heard the plot of this film, so that the ultimate twist everything culminated into could hit the way it was intended. Really compelling, and that complex evolution is performed really well by Leo. Love the clever writing that led up to it as well. I was totally locked in for the entire film, from what I thought the film was to what it ended up being. Scorsese does an excellent job. The film is really effectively creepy, and the big reveal at the end is so chillingly impactful. This is one I know I loved it when I watched it, but it was only April of 2025, but it already feels so long ago because of how many movies I've watched in that time that I want to rewatch it already. But I know I loved it. It's great. So come on up. Coming up to A tier somewhere. Final Destination really seems weird at the top of A tier. Let's put that at the top. Shutter Island. Next up is Sing Sing, one I referenced earlier, starring Coleman Domingo. One I watched also very early in the year from the previous Oscar award season. Completely robbed, by the way. Robbed of a Best Picture nomination. Robbed of a Best Supporting Actor nomination for Clarence Macklin. so many things it was robbed of in that season, because I won't even waste any time. It was my favorite 2024 film. So of all the films that I watched that came out the previous year that I watched early in 2025, it was my favorite. And so it's an S tier film. Not only that, I give it 5 stars on Letterboxd. Like, that's so rare for me. I don't know if this is recency bias or what. Like, I don't know if in a couple years if I'll still feel as passionately about it or not, but it's just really, really hit for me. I won't go into my full review here of Letterboxd. It's not a super detailed review. It's not really very spoilery at all, but I might bring it up on Tarkron as a movie night. So I wanted to leave it as with the least amount of description as possible. I'll just say I was like surprised by certain elements of it that you find out in the end, like at the very end of the film. And overall, I said, love this film. It's a crime it wasn't nominated for Best Picture, really. It's such a beautiful message with amazing performances from Coleman Domingo and Clarence Macklin in particular. It's such a powerful message that really worked for me. I thought it was a beautiful story and some brilliant performances that went with it. And I love it as like not only like a tribute and a story with a lot of heart, but also like a love letter to the arts and what the arts can do in general too. The impact that it can have is at the heart of everything here. So I just love this film. So I will continue to sing its praises for some time now. Sinners. Now we've talked about a lot of the heavy hitters of 2025. Like I talked about One Battle After Another. I've talked about Marty Supreme. I've talked about Hamnet. Like these are some of the heavy hitters of the year that people talk about. Some of the most talked about movies of the year. But perhaps the most talked about movie of the year is Sinners. It broke the record for most nominations for the Oscars. And while I don't think it's my favorite of the year, I think it's well deserving of the praise it's received. I think it's a very special film. That's certainly the case. So let's bring it up. I do think it's S tier. Dang, it's tough. I think a couple things need to move. I think Sinners is probably around here. Maybe Begonia a little below it. Birdcage probably a little bit down here. Black Box Diaries can come down here. Something like this. I don't know. I'm shaking things up. All right, that feels a little bit better. I don't know if I feel this high on Coraline though. I don't know. I'm going crazy. All right. I've moved stuff around a lot, but Sinners, S tier. My initial review was movies just badass and constructed so purposefully, strong characters, directed well, and completely shocking. So glad I got to experience this film completely blind so that I could fully appreciate the shock value. Yes, the entire concept of the film I didn't know. I think it's super widely known now at this point, so unfortunately I don't know if that's possible for a lot of people to experience it that way, but it was really special the way it was revealed authentically in the film. Love the music in this film, and I love how it is so tied to the film's identity throughout. Love the truly creepy, striking images as well as the bits of comedy and genuinely good writing sprinkled in before and after the shift in tone. The film shines in a lot of ways, and a pretty great cast complements all those ways. That's a big pillar of the film. It's a star-studded cast, some great performances, great music, manages to be a fun, original concept, an original film. It's a genre film mixed with the culture that's infused into it, which is beautiful, and some really great sequences, some shots. Is that one super memorable sequence in the barn that everybody will still be talking about for years to come. It's great. It's great. It was really refreshing and it was unexpected. So on the absolute flip side, let's talk about Sneaks. Oof. Movie just looked way worse than I expected. Plus the writing was just super cheesy and the whole concept was pretty lame. Slapped some big names on here and didn't take the time to care for the actual quality of the film. Really forgettable altogether. Sneaks, we don't have to go up far. This may be the worst film I watched the entire year. Legitimately, I had it at the bottom the whole year, and I think it might be. Look, COD, Cash on Delivery, which I know no one's seen. No one's seen Sneaks either, but that one's probably objectively not the best film made, but Sneaks was the most offensive to me. And just so bad. It looked bad. Like, the animation just horrendous. The performances whack. The story is so dumb. Like, it's just, the concept is stupid. It's just rough all around. Really, really terrible. Next up, we're going to start with Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs for chronology's sake. The 1937 film, which surprisingly I watched for the first time, and I think it holds up still. In some ways, you know. My first time watching this film all the way through, and did so in preparation for the live-action remake, and I was really quite impressed. The animation remains a feast for the eyes nearly a century later, and that is really a testament to the timelessness of the style. Snow White and the Prince don't look great in comparison to the charm and expressiveness of the dwarves, as well as all the wildlife. Really enjoyed most of the interactions with the dwarves in particular. Those were always the highlights of the film for me. Where the film suffers with today's standards is with a pretty lackluster plot that centers on Snow White, who is generally one of the least remarkable Disney princesses, as well as a villain who is not very compelling and doesn't interact with her until the last 15 minutes of the film, and a prince devoid of personality who shows up at the last 5 minutes of the film as needed because apparently they're in love, I guess. And the songs were serviceable, but mostly nothing to write home about now. All that to say that I quite enjoyed my time with the film despite expecting it to look and feel a lot more dated than it did. And I give it grace with some of my critiques above for literally being one of the first of its kind, and for actually being almost a century old. Just technically very impressive and packed with a lot of charm on top of that. Yes. It's a movie that's getting close to a century old, and I still found it a joy to watch, animation-wise, visually. A couple fun songs, nothing crazy. The plot's nothing to write home about, but I just love the expressiveness and the charm of the animation, and the dwarves in particular. Such personality here. So for me, that kind of irons out to a B tier film. Where exactly? I don't know. I think I'll put it right above Cinderella, because for me it was like more effective than Cinderella for me. But I don't know. Maybe something weird didn't work out for me there, because I don't know. I feel like Cinderella is talked about more in the grand scheme of things, but I'll put them side by side. And then next up we have Snow White 2025, which is, look, I don't want to beat a dead horse here. It's not great. It's really not. I mean, if we're going to put Lilo and Stitch in F tier, it's got to be an F tier too. I could maybe do the second in F tier. I had a lot in this review. Even though we did do a detailed review in Tarkron as well, I had a very detailed Letterboxd review here. Having just watched the original a week before, it was even more apparent how Disney dropped the ball in multiple departments. The dwarves, who were charming and super expressive, are now really disturbing to look at and are also void of much of their original personalities. That's my favorite part of the original, thoroughly gutted right there. The other thing that I loved about the original is that it was a feast of beautiful animation and timeless visuals, and with the CGI of the remake, we lose out on all of that, and it somehow manages to look more dated than the movies from 1937 as a result. True, very true. Gal Gadot was mostly not great in the acting department, and her villain song was a bit of a lowlight of the film. Andrew Burnap played an uninteresting love interest in Jonathan, who didn't add much of value to the film. Rachel Zegler was serviceable, but I don't really think it was her best work either, despite her being the best of the leading cast. Disney also made the bizarre choice to make all of the dwarves CGI, but then cast an actual little person as a random bandit character. Lots of questionable choices here. The songs are mostly unremarkable here, with the exceptions being that Waiting on a Wish was a highlight and All Is Fair was a lowlight. The revised Whistle While You Work sounded a little more interesting than the original, at least, though I probably would have preferred just Rachel Zegler singing it solo, rather than integrating the dwarves into it. The revised Hi Ho is fine enough, but less charming than the original. And then when it comes to the plot, Disney really tried to stretch a whole lot of nothing into something. That, combined with some weird pacing, made for a pretty unsatisfying story. Of course, I liked the idea of Snow White doing more than just living happily ever after, but it just wasn't executed well here. All in all, this serves as yet another example of Disney not stopping to ask, should we make a live-action remake of this movie? Everything that made the original Snow White and Seven Dwarfs magical revolves around that timeless animation style. And so when you strip that away, you immediately lose the heart and are just playing catch up from there. And Disney failed to do anything to really offset that loss in any meaningful way and made some questionable decisions on top of that. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Snow White, like Waiting on a Wish is a pretty good song, but other than that, it's just, not one you're gonna want to go back to. And I know for people, they're even more passionately hate this than me out there, but yeah, it's still F tier for me. Got some bangers coming up. Sorry Baby. Sorry Baby is a beautiful little indie film that was made in 2025. One that didn't really get enough credit come award season. I was getting ready to come on here and praise Eva Victor for giving such an inspired performance, and I come to find out that not only did they do that, but they also directed and wrote this. So I'm just even more impressed by them. Props to them for coming in with a clear vision and executing it by carrying the weight of it on their own performance. This is a film that simultaneously handles heavy topics with care while also providing plenty of genuinely funny and kind-hearted moments. So while some scenes are on the darker side, you're pretty much always due for a laugh shortly after. Ava Victor delivers a strong performance as Agnes, a character who has a unique personality about her that I haven't quite seen done before. Naomi Ackie was lovely as well, and it was nice to see her in a couple of films this year, though this film really rests on Eva's performance. Shout out to John Carroll Lynch as well. He delivered a brief, charming performance of a wholesome character. I appreciated the vibe that Lucas had just brought as Gavin, too. Overall, this is a quite thoughtful, contemplative film that is a stellar directorial debut. Excited to see what Ava Victor does next. I'm just so impressed by her with this. I loved her performance. I loved the writing. I loved the directing. So, killed it on all fronts. And again, I said this before. I think she uses both pronouns, she and they. Correct me if I'm wrong. I apologize. So, I've been kind of using them interchangeably in that review. I used they. But let me know if I'm wrong there. I loved this film. And I probably would love it even more with a repeat watch too, to cement it. Let's bring Sorry Baby up to A tier. Maybe above F1, that feels right. They should be above F1. I think the Ballad of Wallace Island can come down actually, because they should be comparable too, unless they go up together. Yeah, because I think Ballad of Wallace Island is side by side. I'm not sure which one edges out the other at this point. The Sound of Music. I will say, as much as I've heard The Sound of Music mentioned throughout the years, I somehow never knew that songs like My Favorite Things originated with it, so absolute respect for some charming music here. I generally quite enjoyed it and found the story to be quite charming as well, but especially got enjoyment out of the dynamic between Maria and the children and how much of an impact she has on their lives, rather than the whole love story aspect, which I didn't care much for. Also, shout out to those sisters who sabotaged the Nazis' cars, true heroes. Sound of Music I know is like an all-time favorite for some people. It's not going to be quite on that level. It's going to be more of a B tier situation for me, I think, for now, until I get more time for reflection on it and repeat viewing. But I did quite enjoy it. To be real, I did quite enjoy it. So I'll put it right here above Black Swan. Below Companion, right around there. Stand By Me. This was another one that by random chance from the Letterboxd user, I got this one as well. And yeah, this is a banger. I got so many great films from that series this year, so I'm excited to get back into that this year. But it's an S tier film, I think, for me. Really enjoyed it. It's a really charming film. It's no wonder that it's viewed as an absolute classic. It's a pretty grounded story with a lot of heartwarming moments mixed in with the silliness and sometimes tragedy. It manages to bottle up childhood friendship and camaraderie in such a charming and effective way. Everything is elevated even more by the fact that all the kids give excellent performances too. That was the thing that took me back the most. That actually genuinely amazing performance from these children. Unfortunately, well, first of all, it's kind of wild, some of the actors that played these children that I never would have known and never did know until this. They're not, immediately recognizable. Like Jerry O'Connell, Will Wheaton, Corey Feldman, Kiefer Sutherland. Well, Kiefer Sutherland's recognizable, but those other ones, okay, just random. Jerry O'Connell's unrecognizable now. But obviously the one I didn't mention, River Phoenix, who I learned the story of his passing at a young age too, which is just a shame because he's an amazing young actor in this film, and his performance is at the heart of everything. I just think it's a superb film. I think Stardust with Charlie Cox and Claire Danes, like this, that combo is one I had no idea. First of all, that Charlie Cox was randomly in this movie. Stardust, I had gotten this DVD randomly of it, and then I threw it on this my list for the film challenge we were doing on the Discord, and it happened to get assigned to me. So probably never would have hit this movie up in years to come, but I'm glad I watched it. It's a charming little random fantasy story. As the review says, well, that was a fun little fantastical adventure. I enjoyed the ride quite a bit. Fun cast of characters, and it was refreshing being exposed to a whole new fantasy world with its own rules and a nice vibe. Story-wise, it was cool, although some developments were fairly telegraphed, but nothing too egregious. So yeah, while it's not an all-timer for me, I did enjoy it. It was decent. It was pretty decent. Nothing crazy. So for me, it'll be a low-end B-tier film. Maybe just below the Final Destination. It's like very, very low end of the B tier. This is good. See, look, B tier is basically my C tier, which means I'm like scaled up. I'm watching better movies than the average on average, which makes sense if you're, making an effort to go out of the way for certain movies. You're probably not going to go for mostly average movies. The Substance, directed by Coralie Farge, starring Demi Moore and Margaret Qualley. Fantastic from all ladies involved. Fantastic. This was super shocking when I first watched it early on in the year. I'm sorry, but Jesus Christ, what the fuck did I just watch? What a trip. Those are some of the most brutal, grotesque scenes I've ever endured, but somehow I ended up really liking it. And I appreciate films that make me feel things, and this one certainly did, and those things were not what I often feel from films at all. A poignant message with a tragic story and a horror aesthetic, along with a jarring layer of comedy in the mix. Demi Moore delivers a performance that is often hard to watch and hard to look away from at the same time. And Margaret Qualley is great too. They both showcase the beauty and horror vulnerability on screen, Demi Moore especially. Coralie Farge drove this film with some brilliant direction that was bold and continued to shock and impress me. And I give major kudos to the hair and makeup crew here. They were more essential than I ever imagined going into this movie. Bravo. In general, I love where the plot went, though I do think it went on just a little bit too long at the end for me. I think the film just got the tiniest bit carried away at the very end, and Farge just decided to send it all the way. Whereas I think if she pulled back just a little, it would have been slightly more effective for me. Though the messaging is clear, I'm sure others appreciated the commitment to the over-the-top finish. Yeah. If you know, you know, obviously. I made a couple more specific notes that I won't go into, but really, it's a striking film. It's bold, and it's one I want to rewatch again. I'm sorry I'm going to say that a lot, but it's just true. Because I'm so torn. Like in reflection, it's like, do I like this more than Anora? But at the time, I was like full team Anora for everything. So I don't know. It's comparable. It's right around there. They could both arguably be in S tier too, but both. I mean, this is one that's like you're not gonna get bored, and it's hard to look away from, and it's like so much to it. Fascinating concept. Sugarcane is another documentary where it's like I appreciated the concept and what it's getting across. Obviously, is an important story, but the documentary itself was just okay to me. Didn't really fully connect with it. Hard to say anything's wrong with the film at all. It's quite dry, but that feels almost by design. All of the cold, brutal facts and atrocities are plainly presented to the audience with no sugar cane coating. It allows everything to really sink in. The pregnant breaths on numerous occasions in both the interview segments and the pacing of the documentary in general only amplify that. And yet another case of me being informed about something I was unaware of before, which is the beauty of a documentary too. But it's going to be more of a C tier for me, documentary. Probably down here. I'm not very high on it. Little good boy. Next up, we do have 2025's Superman by James Gunn. First time ever watching a Superman movie, and I quite enjoyed it. I didn't think it was a masterpiece or anything, but did quite enjoy it, and enjoyed the fun they had with some of the cinematography, the fun little cast of characters, and all of their weird antics. For a while, it seemed like we'd be hard-pressed to call a DC film satisfactory, so it's cool to see we're in an era where I can safely say this was a competent superhero film. Yeah, that's big. And I mean, I think it was really tastefully done and just like felt elevated above the level of some other superhero films and how it's presented. Like, this is a film, right? I appreciated the messaging. It's a pretty wholesome message for the time, you know. Is it too woke? I think we could all use a good woke film, woke superhero film. Anyway, I just think in terms of this and Fantastic Four, I've always seen them hand in hand, like interchangeable in my mind, side by side. They're barely like I can see one edging out the other, but Fantastic Four for me just edges it out right now. Though I think the impact of Superman is much greater, will have much more of a lasting impact. It's just comparable to me. Interestingly enough, though, next up is Thunderbolts, which is, I'll just say right now, it's my favorite superhero film of the year. So it is above these ones, the ones that I just mentioned, as well as Captain America Brave New World, who is down there in D tier. Thunderbolts. I really had zero expectations before this movie came out, and I'm delightfully surprised by how enjoyable it is. A fun movie with a fun crew with some heart to it as well. Florence Pugh, as Yelena in particular, adds some touching moments to the film, and for the most part, everything just works and comes together naturally. The cast plays off of each other really well, and that is the core of what makes the film. How the film resolves itself is just a little silly to me, but other than that, I really enjoyed this film. So for me, I rated the other two 3.5 stars, and I rated this one 4 stars pretty solidly. But I do think with how I've been tiering this, it's going to end up in the same tier, just a little higher. How high do we go? I don't even know. Boom, right there, above Freakier Friday. The Thursday Murder Club. Doesn't do anything groundbreaking, and some of how the plot is resolved is a bit questionable, but overall I enjoyed this. It's got a nice little vibe to it and a cute cast. I feel like it's not often you get a cast of predominantly elder actors / actresses, so that alone gave it a pretty unique vibe and was cool to see. It really is interesting. I've never really seen that before. I mean, I'm sure there are films. There are a couple I'm thinking of that might be the case for that I haven't seen, but this one's just interesting. You got Helen Mirren, Pierce Brosnan, Ben Kingsley, Celia Imrie, David Tennant, Jonathan Pryce, just to name a few. I forgot Naomi Ackie was in. I completely forgot Naomi Ackie was in this film. Because I think when I said for Sorry Baby, I'm so glad she's in other films. I don't know if I was even thinking of this one. She's also in Mickey 17. Who knows what else? But yeah, some great legacy actors, and it's very cute. It's a simple story. Like, it's probably more of a C tier type story, but I think the vibes are enough to carry it to a soft B tier movie for me. On the lower end of things, but B tier nonetheless. Like maybe right there, below Stardust. Next up is Train Dreams, another Oscar award nominated film, a Best Picture nominee, and I think it's a gem. I think it is it's beautiful, and I really would love to watch this one again before the Oscars if I can. It's going to be tight with all these other movies I have to watch. But I said, wow, beautiful and profound film, one you really have to give yourself over to in order to appreciate. A film that knows when to breathe in those quieter moments, with pacing that is somewhat melancholic while somehow never losing your attention. Beautiful, moving, powerful. Some great subtle performances as well. If you've ever spent a moment contemplating life, then this might just resonate with you, and I have a feeling that is all of us. It's so tough. I'm still so conflicted on even how I feel about the Best Picture nominees in relation to each other. There's just a lot of great films, and just not sure how high to put them. But Train Dreams, for now, is going to be probably so tough. Maybe right around here in A tier. Beautiful film, beautifully shot too. And we're going to go from that to Trainwreck Poop Cruise. Trainwreck is a weird series of kind of low effort documentaries from Netflix that are on these random little stories. Poop Cruise, which is one I might have vaguely remembered but I hadn't heard before, but I think was pretty viral, of these people that got trapped on a cruise ship, or stuck on a cruise ship without power, and he called it a poop cruise because like there was nowhere to properly poop essentially, and it became a whole logistical nightmare. And here's what I'll say in the review. I was entertained. The tone the documentary took was pretty comical considering the shitty situation. Poop lasagna was some nasty work. All in all, the documentary wasn't anything groundbreaking, and it had this fast-paced editing style that at times I wasn't a big fan of, but it's such a quick watch that it's hard to be too mad at it for what it does. I came for a documentary about a poop cruise, and that is certainly what I got. Ultimately, it was funny when I was looking at like some discourse online, and I was like, took the time to take a step back, and I was like, yeah, well, maybe there are more important issues in the world than people that were like inconvenienced on a cruise ship. It's like, yeah, obviously that's like nasty conditions or whatever, but it's like ultimately these are people that had the money to go on a cruise. Like they'll be okay. It's not like a story where people died or anything like that. But yeah. So it's like a C tier little real short little documentary thing too. Nothing special. I'll put it below Sugarcane because I'm not gonna disrespect Sugarcane like that. Trick or Treat. This is one I'd heard of referenced so much, and I had seen the iconic, like Sam, character, the thing with the sack on its head. That character, you kind of really, it's like kind of an iconic horror type character. But my review kind of says that I had a lot of fun watching this, and I had no idea how adult themed this film is. Love how we got a bunch of different perspectives and varied the story up. Though I do think it would have benefited from a little more focus. This movie took so many damn turns that I never really knew what to expect, which is mostly great. But I do wish it had a more cohesive narrative because it felt a bit all over the place at times. But make no mistake, I really enjoyed the ride, and the vibes are perfect for the season. Yeah, it's just a really fun horror film, though. I just had no idea it was so like adult themed. From the outside, I always thought it was like a children's like character for some reason, like a more like family friendly horror type Halloween type movie. I don't know why, but that's just what I got. And then I was like surprised by what it was. But I love it. It perfectly matches the vibe. Like I love that vibe of Halloween. Take me back to Halloween vibes. A tier, bottom of A tier. All right, we're getting into the Tron movies. If you want to check them out, we reviewed all 3 Tron movies over on Tarkaron as well. Overall, I'll say I just came out not really liking Tron. They won't go any higher than C tier for me. My rating for this film was only barely even this high just because of the aesthetic and the creativity in its production. Other than that, the plot is kind of a mess. The performances leave a lot to be desired, though I generally enjoyed Jeff Bridges, and I wasn't invested in any of the characters. So really struck out in a lot of different ways for me, and I just like admire the creativity of the production side of things, and that's about it. So probably the softest C tier I can give you. Oh, of course, this is the one I forgot to reorder. Here we go. Tron first, 1982. I'll give it a generous C tier. I'll even give it above Maria too, which is like objectively a better made film, but I'll give it a little nod for the creativity aspect. Tron Legacy is easily the best film, and it's cooler than the original, but it's not going to go above C tier either. I'll put it certainly higher in C tier. How much higher? Just a little bit, right there. I'll put it above Muppets from Space, generously. I said, a spiffier, cooler version of the original that's a generally nicer looking and more competent film. I still don't think it's a great film, but it's undeniably more fun to watch than the original, and the aesthetics are even cooler. There's a little more depth to this one with the father-son dynamic to it, which I appreciated, but other than that, there's nothing too remarkable, and the characters / plot overall aren't doing anything innovative. And it needs to be said, the 1989 Jeff Bridges is a terrifying stain on this film, to be sure, especially for what is otherwise a cool movie to appreciate visually. That is true, needs to be said, can't be understated. In fact, that's why even more so I'm feeling this is generous. That's just horrific, but I'll let it slide a little bit. Tron Ares, Not a huge fan of the Tron movies in general, but technology has advanced so much in just 15 years that I thought a new one made during this time would have a lot of potential. Unfortunately, I think it's pretty wasted here because instead of going all in on the visual effects and fleshing out the aesthetic, way too much time is spent out in the regular world with a fairly unremarkable action sci-fi plot. The characters continue to be generally uninteresting to me in this installment, and the film as a whole was quite boring. Even Jeff Bridges' inclusion felt half-hearted. Unironically, my favorite part of the film was the Tronified opening Disney sequence. Super cool. Yeah. Look, the soundtrack's nice, I get it. There's some fun visuals, but not nearly enough like that I was expecting and that they could have done and would have been awesome with the budget here. But yeah, I'll give it a generous middle of D tier-ish area. How about that? Here comes The Ugly Stepsister. Goat alert. An underappreciated film, which was like one of my more delightful surprises of Oscar nominations morning, was learning that this was nominated for hair and makeup out of nowhere, which was lovely because it wasn't really getting the appreciation it deserves for this award season, and I appreciate that. Jesus Christ, there's some gnarly stuff in here. It's essentially Norwegian Cinderella meets The Substance. That's the easiest way to sell it. That's exactly what it is. So if you don't like what you hear, it's not going to be for you. If you do like it, Substance, body horror, meets that vibe, you will love it. But it actually works so well. Some visceral, brutally effective scenes, and Leah Myron delivers a scary, good performance. A hardcore variation of the classic fairy tale, and it's not at all cheap in the way you might expect it to be. Some brilliant effects and clever shots that will make your skin crawl in the best way. Definitely not for anyone with a weak stomach, but if you have any sort of appreciation for this kind of film, then it is worth a watch. It's one of those, Substance that you can't recommend to everybody. This I won't recommend to everybody. It's just purely on what your tolerance for that kind of thing is. I quite enjoy it. And it's super effectively done here. I love it. It's one of the few, if not the only Norwegian film I've ever really watched. So it's I'm glad I got to watch it this year. Come on up. She's gonna come up to 8 tier as well. Somewhere in these range, like some of the other 2025 films. There you go. Until Dawn. This is a movie based on the game, roughly. If you want to watch our review on Tarkron, we did one as well. I said I'm a little torn between 2.5 and 3 stars here. For the most part, it's objectively pretty mediocre, but I did find myself enjoying it for the gimmick and the over-the-top kills. One of those movies you don't have to think too much about, and while it is super limited in scope and has some questionable writing at times, I ultimately did enjoy it for what it was. I just think there was more potential than than what we got in execution. And while it does sometimes capture the energy of Until Dawn, it isn't really about Until Dawn hardly at all. And so there's obviously a major disconnect there. And damn, was this movie loud as fuck or was it just me? There were a couple of good scenes in here, but for the most part I felt like good scares in here. But for the most part I felt like the attempts at jump scares relied heavily on just going from no noise to blasting sound. The film gives itself no room to breathe and build a creepy, tense atmosphere more akin to Until Dawn either, which is a shame. It doesn't give you that room to build the atmosphere, which is, yeah, it's unfortunate because that's what Until Dawn was so good at. There's like a scene in particular that really stood out because it was so clearly referential, and I appreciated that. Other than that, it's a very different movie than Until Dawn. If it was named something different, it would be a lot more palatable, I think. Still ended up like I'm not mad at it. Like it's a C tier film for me. Very nice. No, a little lower than this, lower than this, lower than this. It's hard to say it's higher than most of these, honestly. Let's put it right above Hedda. Sure. VHS Halloween. Now, my dumbass had no idea that this was a horror series of movies, and I'm super tempted to go back and watch the others now. Apparently, it's a long-running horror series. Essentially, it's an anthology series with, from what I understand, and each one it has multiple different stories, just like this one. So this is a compilation of all stories focused specifically on Halloween, and I love that. I love the vibe. It's just by the nature of it, all kind of evens out to an average film to me because there's like some really high highs and really low lows in the different short films within it. I will say this is the first VHS film I've watched. I honestly hadn't heard of them until this, and I really liked the concept of essentially a found footage story compilation. That's fun in itself because it keeps things varied. There's a couple of decent segments in here, but once we got to fun size, the film was really losing me because not only was that one ridiculously stupid, but it also went on for too long. And then Kid Print was extremely effective and chilling, and Coochie Coochie Coo was nice and creepy too. While others like Old Supra Sick Infra and Diet Phantasma just didn't do much for me. So there's just such disparity in quality between the best and the worst segments. Fun Size, too, I've heard is like some people's favorites. Like, oh, I love Fun Size. So I'm like, to each his own, I guess, maybe. My ranking of them would probably go something like this: Kid Print, Coochie Coochie Coo, Home Hunt, Fun Size, Diet Phantasma, Ut Supra Sick Infra. So I love the vibe, but ultimately it's just like, it's such a mixed bag by its nature that like I wouldn't mind watching it again at all, but it's not going to be able to go much higher than this. So I'll put it at the top of C tier. But I fuck with what it's going for. Violent Night is one, unfortunately, I didn't care for because my brother in particular loves this film. He's been wanting me to watch it for a while. I always hate when it happens and it just doesn't work for me. But one just didn't really work for me at all. This brand of humor doesn't do anything for me. Not a fan of the writing. Obviously, the film isn't meant to be taken too seriously, but I just found most of the characters to be insufferable anyway. David Harbour's Santa isn't bold enough to carry this movie for me. Yeah, it's mostly just forgettable to me too. Yeah, not great. Probably somewhere around here, right next to The Legend of Ochi. Sorry. Wake Up Dead Man, another Knives Out mystery. I enjoyed it and thought it was written quite well as per usual. Still not quite on the level of the original for me, but this one does a great job at setting itself apart tonally from both of the previous films. Daniel Craig and Josh O'Connor are the main standouts of the cast. I think the supporting cast is a bit weaker than the previous films, largely because they don't get as much of a chance to shine. The plot is compelling, though a couple of things seem fairly telegraphed at times, and the film, as always, does a good job at wrapping the story up in a nice Benoit Blanc-shaped bow. Yeah, this is a problem for me. Like, while I did enjoy it, it just really does not reach the heights of Knives Out. Even Glass Onion, which I have just below this one, the cast is just much more standout, and Glass Onion has a little more time to shine. I think that's kind of the thing you're looking for with these films. I don't know, that's just kind of the reputation it's made for itself as a series for Knives Out. It's like you want like this really fun dynamic cast to see, it's like a whodunit. So you want interesting characters at play here. And yeah, this one not as strong for me. They don't get to do as much. So that's where it kind of takes a hit. The tone is just so strong and different, like the gothic theme to it, the religious themes to it, which I think are cool. But yeah, for me, it's gonna probably be in the lower end of B tier. Honestly, I don't think it was definitely nowhere near one of my favorite films of the year. It wasn't that much of a standout for me, but I enjoyed it. And I just still will always love Benoit Blanc. So like right around here, right around The Naked Gun, 2025 maybe just above it. Wallace and Gromit, Vengeance Most Foul. This is a movie, among other Wallace and Gromits, that people just seem to love and adore, and it just didn't do anything for me. And the reason I hadn't really ever watched the Wallace and Gromit film in full, and I watched it because it had been nominated for animated feature at previous Oscars. So it's my first time watching a Wallace and Gromit movie, and I'm sorry to say I'm just indifferent on it. It might just not be for me. I do love the stop motion claymation style that it's known for, but overall it just didn't do much for me. Not to say it was bad at all. I just don't know if I would have it as an Oscar nominee myself. Yeah, I think there were definitely movies I would have subbed in for it, but I understand this is like an adoration for these films, and I love the stop motion style. But yeah, for me, I gave it 2.5 stars, which is a little rough. I think it would probably be C tier for me, to be fair. Maybe right around here. Next up is Weapons. Thoroughly enjoyed this film. Some really chilling stuff in here, as well as some surprisingly comical moments sprinkled in as well. But man, was it gripping. I loved the storytelling choice to go through the different characters' perspectives as chapters, essentially. That was a really nice touch that elevated the experience quite a bit. And man, what a brutal resolution. It's really not as scarring as Bring Her Back was, but super effective in telling this cool story, and there's still a terrifying lady present. Yeah, let's bring Weapons up. I think I could get Weapons into S tier. I think so. It's one of my favorite films of the year still. There's some really heavy hitters that kind of edged it out over time, but really loved it. I think I still love that narrative structure, like I said. That's become one of my favorite structures for plots in general, if it's done effectively. It's just like seeing different perspectives and seeing it all come together. Um, it can be annoying with certain films where it's like, oh, you're just getting to a good point, and then it's like, cut away to a different character's perspective and going back again. I get that, but for me, this one just really nailed it. And Amy Madigan's fantastic. It's a fun, solid cast overall for mostly people I don't know, and so that was cool. A lot of great horror films this year, if you can't tell. Next up is The Whale. This is an incredibly divisive film because obviously it received praise at the time. It received Oscar nomination and a win for Brendan Fraser. But especially now, just looking at my selection of people I follow, there's the whole spectrum from 1 star to 5 stars and every increment in between for this film. 2, 2.5, 3, 3.5, 4, 4.5, 5. I ended up in the 4.5 range. This one really just worked for me. I get it. I get where the flaws are coming from. I do think if you thought it was like, if you're laughing at it, I don't think you're not getting it. You're missing the point. I don't think that's really on the film. Because I think Brendan Fraser delivers an awesome performance. It was brutal, and it really hit for me. There's no way around it. Like, it definitely worked for me emotionally, and it hit me hard. So I'm not going to deny that. I'm not going to really let people cloud my judgment on that. Like, that's real. Sometimes you gotta just like, you gotta let yourself have it in these movies, and some crazy makeup work in there too. Yeah, S tier. Fuck you. Jesus Christ, this really hit for me. It had me in tears by the end of the film. That's how I know it did what it was trying to do for me. Loved Brendan Fraser's performance, and Sadie Sink was great too. Some really powerful stuff in here. Aronofsky does such a great job at conveying what feels like such a raw and real 2 hours. The entire film takes place in this one setting, and you truly get sucked into the depressing energy, and even so, eventually come out with such meaningful messages to take away from it. I was truly engrossed for the entire film. It's tough. It's a rough watch at times. It can just be depressing and sad at times. But I think I loved how it captured the vibe that, it is based on a play, and that comes through on screen, how it's all kind of taking place in one setting. And I mean, that's real. Like, the guy didn't go anywhere, so what are you going to do? That's the story. And I just think it's such a strong performance. It's brutal. I think some of the writing is a little bit much, a little on the nose, whatever, but ultimately beautiful, I think. Wicked for good. I wish I could have this as high as I did. Like, Wicked, I loved Wicked, and this is just undeniably it's a much more flawed Wicked sequel here. A noticeably significant step down from Wicked. From what I've heard, the second half of the Wicked production is just weaker in general, but obviously that's going to be reflected here. Can't help but notice some rushed and some half-assed character arcs, and not fully satisfying conclusion. The music is noticeably weaker as well, which will obviously knock the film down an additional peg. That being said, I still appreciate the film, and I enjoyed it more than I didn't. Jeff Goldblum had a surprising amount of funny moments here. Ethan Slater was solid with what he was given. And obviously the Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo dynamic was always fun to watch, though there was much less opportunity for it in this one. And even though the music is weaker compared to the first one, there are still a few really great tracks in here. I'm definitely grateful for this 2-film experience, even if this one did have a bit of a rough path getting there. It's just kind of the narrative is out there. I agree for the most part with everything that's been said. You can get my more detailed thoughts from our review on Tarkaron as well. Wicked for good. Just, I think it's generous to give it B tier, but that's where I have it. Like 3.5 stars. It's already generous, but I think I will stick with B tier, just on the lower end. Like maybe right below Stardust. Yeah, we're getting down to it, folks. Getting down to it. Next up is Will and Harper. If you haven't heard of this one, it's another documentary. Look, I'm hitting up a lot of documentaries this year, I'm telling you. This one's great. This is a very simple and sweet, but also quite thoughtful look at a trans perspective and the kinds of conversations that might come from that experience. Ultimately, there's not too much that really goes on in the documentary, but the beauty comes from the simplicity and how it effectively humanizes everything, which is refreshing for a topic that is often not handled the best or with the most nuance. Also, I was about to say Kristen Wiig's song was good but not very jazzy at all, but then she did throw in the jazzy part, a nice little ditty for sure. I like that song. That unironically probably should have been nominated for an Oscar. I mean, this was the year of Amelia Perez, so it definitely should have been nominated over one of those songs, but yeah, Will and Harper, I mean, it's essentially just a documentary about Will Ferrell and his friend who, her name is Harper Steele. I forget what her name was previously, but she essentially transitioned at a very old age. It was like, what, her 60s or 70s that she kind of came out as trans. And it was kind of a shock because she kind of been doing it behind closed doors for a while, kind of like wearing women's clothes and whatnot. And it was a whole thing. It took a lot for her to come out. And it's essentially just Will Ferrell and her just like chopping it up, coming to terms with it, and just like, well, not even like, that's the thing, that was the beauty in it. It wasn't like there wasn't any judgment on Will's part. It was just like, how would you like me to approach it? Do you want me to change how I interact with you in certain ways and stuff? And then just going for a road trip, as they like to do. It was, like I said, really simple but really sweet. Honestly, when I think about this film, I think about the potential of this just being an amazing film that, like, if you are like not really aware of trans experiences or don't have trans people in your life, it's just a good way to like get the real, like a more what feels like an authentic experience and perspective of a trans person, and just handled tastefully. It's not like, they don't shy away from the normal questions to ask when it comes to it. So like if you go into and watch this movie and you're like, ooh, trans people still bad, I just don't fuck with it at all, then okay, you're just gonna be transphobic. But if you just open yourself up a little bit, maybe open your mind a little bit, if you don't understand it, you just make an effort to understand, and the film just kind of, I think it's nicely done that way, So where do I put it? It's kind of tough. Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna move some of these B tiers up, as I think they are deserving. So come on up, guys. These next few I think are good. Might end around there. Where did I drop? Where did I drop Will and Harper? Oh Lord, right here. So now I can think more confidently. Will and Harper should be somewhere around the top of B tier here. Something like this feels better. Next up is The Witch. This is one I've heard talked about a lot. I'm kind of fascinated with the Salem witch trials and everything involved in that. Like, that's a fascinating piece of history to me. I'm just going to bring this up because it's relevant. The Witches, I literally got a book on it that I want to read soon. More on the historical side of things. But I remember hearing when someone, like an expert, talking about the Salem witch trials, and they were saying that The Witch is one of the actually better representations of it on film. And The Witch really isn't, it's not a historical or super historical film. It just happens to, like, I guess, do a pretty good portrayal of the time period, and then it's just like the leans into the horror aspect of that, like, and it's really clever. I liked it a lot. Great film. I really enjoyed what they did with this. Does a good job of making you feel uncomfortable with how events are transpiring, and I still wasn't sure where exactly it was going at any given time. Some effectively unsettling stuff and a solid score to complement that. I only wish we got more of that nasty, disturbing, witchy content, though I do understand the intentional pacing here, feeding us only crumbs at a time. Just wish there was more because those portions are done so effectively. Anya Taylor-Joy, Ralph Ineson, Kate Dickie, and Harvey Scrimshaw all delivered stellar performances. I was really quite impressed by all of them. They completely sell this film, only with some great directing from Robert Eggers. That's exactly it. Robert Eggers went on to direct Nosferatu, so if you love that, like, you understand where he kind of comes from things at. Intrigued by Werewolf and what that'll look like. But yeah, The Witch. So then we got Witch, Nosferatu, Werewolf. Like, he's just knocking out some cool concepts. But this one really worked for me. I think it was so cool. And like I said, the performances at the heart of it were great. So come on up, The Witch. How about this? Side by side, Anya Taylor-Joy's. Let's do that. Also becoming just an actress I really love. A lot of actresses I'm becoming really interested in checking out more of their work. Like Florence Pugh, I mentioned. Anya Taylor-Joy. What's her name? What's her damn name from Little Women? Saoirse Ronan, among others. But great film. Weird way to go from here, but The Woman in the Yard is like one of the most forgettable films of 2025. It came out very early in the year. There were some elements that were quite creepy, and I liked the general symbolism and a lot of what goes down, but most of the elements that were meant to be scary didn't do much for me, and I overall was more confused than anything throughout the film until everything was all settled. So it ends up a mixed bag for me that falls somewhere in the meh category. Yeah. Not great. I would even edge it into the D tier at this point, I think it's safe to say. As I go down, I'm finding more and more that I actually like more than it. So yeah, probably somewhere around here. Yeah. Next up is Wrongfully Accused. A 1998 old Leslie Nielsen film. I just love The Naked Gun. And I'm aware that Leslie Nielsen was in a lot of these bad, like, spoof comedy films. But I just want to check out more of them because I do love Leslie Nielsen. So here's what I thought about it. Well, wow, they really said, let's do The Naked Gun, but let's dial up the stupidity by a magnitude of 100. The humor is not nearly as consistent, and so much of it is actually so dumb, but it's hard to be mad at it at the same time. The movie is completely shameless and owns how stupid it is, so while it is not anywhere close to the same level as some of its predecessors, it still has some redeemable jokes, and it'll always be a fun watch. You just might laugh at it more than you laugh with it. Yeah, it's very forgettable. I've already forgotten most of the jokes, so I even will probably edge it into D tier anyway, even though, like, objectively it's easily D tier and below. Like, I could see it being C tier because it is just so stupid that it's hard to be mad at it. But let's say D tier and maybe around here. Next up, Y2K. Starring Rachel Zegler, Jaden Martell, Julian Dennison. A young little cast in here. For some reason, I had so much to say about this film. Man, this is just a few degrees away from being something great. What mostly held it back for me was that it was trying to be a few too many things at once. If it had just either gone all in on the crazy stupid shit or gone for a more grounded coming of age approach, then I think it would have been a lot more effective. The movie mostly didn't take itself very seriously, so there were points where it seemed like it might fully commit to the nonsense of it all, but then there would be random heart-to-hearts that were seemingly being played out in sincerity, and of course they weren't going to work in a movie where everyone is so usually unserious and unfazed by the absolute carnage happening around them. At the same time, the very beginning of the film felt like it was laying what could have potentially been some solid groundwork for a more grounded film that would have lent itself more to those softer moments. So it never really commits to one storytelling style, and as a result doesn't fully capture any of its potential. There are no real laugh out loud moments, and I think that's largely because the filmmakers don't fully give you the confidence that they know when certain things are funny, though I think they do. All that being said, I definitely enjoyed it more than I didn't. There was a decent amount of cringe in there, sure, but it's hard to knock that too much when it's clear that the filmmakers did that very intentionally most of the time. To a certain extent, it felt like the movie was just trying to tick off 90s reference checkboxes, but overall the vibe worked for me and complemented the overall tone. Jaden Martell and Rachel Zegler were both solid, and Julian Dennison provided a fun energy that I was surprised we didn't get more of. I think people who hated this movie didn't really understand what it was going for and how intentional it was being with some of its cringy decisions. quote-unquote cringy. All in all, I don't think it's a great movie, but it certainly has some charm and it's at least fun. For certain people, I could see this 100% unapologetically being their vibe, and for others, I could see them rolling their eyes for the duration of the film. For me, it ends up somewhere in the middle. I think it had the potential to be something really great and thoroughly funny, and it doesn't commit enough to get there, but it's still a fun time. Absolutely agree with that. Couldn't have said it better myself, and I did. So C tier, on the lower end, but yeah, it's kind of vibey film. Last film I'm talking about that I watched in 2025 is Zootopia 2. Of all the films, you can go check out our review on Tarkron for more detailed thoughts. But I'll say on Letterboxd, while not as original in concept, this film still captures the same energy, humor, and dynamics as the first one, with that same great messaging as well. Some scenes are just a little too frenetic and or childish for me, but overall it is varied enough to appeal to all ages. Great voice cast and still a really fun and effective relationship between Judy and Nick. Just a fun time. It's a solid film. It's a solid 8 out of 10 film. Like, no real complaints with it. At the same time, I'm like, that's going to probably be the top of B tier for me type of film. Because like I said, it's retreading similar ground as the original. But I think the original had a beautiful concept. And this is a very progressive concept as well of like maybe not judging outsiders based on what people in power tell you about outsiders. Like, hint, hint. I like that message a lot. And I think it's much needed during this time. But hopefully with Zootopia 3, it's not the same exact type of thing with like another new outsider that was misunderstood. But yeah, I don't think it's quite A tier. So B tier somewhere, maybe right around here. Who knows? Who knows at this point? I'm gonna bring up a couple to S tier. Shutter Island, I think, could work in S tier. Bring Her Back. Come on, let's bring you to S tier. How to Train Your Dragon: The Hidden World, hot take, S tier. Top of A tier probably shouldn't be Final Destination Bloodlines. So maybe an Anora can come up here in the substance. Sure, is there stuff I could change around in these tiers? Probably. But this is where I'm gonna let it sit. My tier list of all 200 movies I watched for the first time in 2025. Let me know your thoughts down below. Such a hard undertaking. Let me know if I should do it differently next year. Again, probably won't be 200 next year, but hopefully at least 100. I love experiencing new films. This year, I haven't hit the ground running as much as I thought I would. Mostly I hit the ground running with video games, which is cool too. But I still, obviously, I gotta do catch up for the Oscars. And then beyond that, still want to keep up with new films and experience tons of new films again this year. As long as I'm experiencing new ones regularly, that's cool. I don't need to hit 200 again. I think this was a pretty spectacular year for me for film. And I'm just striving for 100, which I think is doable. We'll see. And so here, if we want to get a brief look, again, I'm not 100% confident on any of this really, but here's what I got cooking here. S tier, A tier, chunkier B tier, C tier, D tier, and a small F tier. That's nice. That means I'm probably watching good movies, which is good. That's the goal. Like I said, if the average is a B, that's perfectly acceptable. I like all the movies in B tier and up. And then like a good amount of the ones in C tier, I like a lot of it. A lot of what the film is doing. It's just not, there's enough weighing it down, or it doesn't fully work for me. And I know it works for others. Like, it's a combination of those things. And then the D tier and F tier are the ones I are more definitively don't like. And there's not that many there. It really isn't. Even the ones at the top of D tier, I like elements of. So it's like, I watched a ton of amazing films. Like, tell me I'm wrong. Like, tell me these aren't great films here. A lot of all-timers, some ones that are literally in my favorite movies of all time list now. And beautiful stuff. So I thank you for watching. Subscribe to the channel for more on film, television, reality TV, and stay tuned for more stuff on the way. Of course. Thank you.